What's up, guys? This is Josh from the MTGNoob.com, here with the MTG Noob himself,
Hey guys.
and we're here to give you a Return to Ravnica pre-release primer.
Okay guys, so let's talk quickly about this pre-release and how it's going to work. First and foremost, you're going to get to choose one of 5 guilds. When you go to your local shop, they're going to give you pretty much a guild pre-release package. And in this package, it's going to come with 5 regular Return to Ravnica packs, a guild pack which will only have mythic rares that are your guild leaders, so don't expect to pull a Jace or anything like that out of your guild specific pack, but those cards will be really good at boosting up your guild. Then you'll get an alternate art pre-release card that we're going to talk about later on, an achievement card just as like a nice little fluff fun thing to do, a spin down life counter die, a guild sticker symbol so you can show off what guild you pick, and finally the thing I'm most excited about, Josh, is the letter from my guild leader.
I can't wait to see what he has to say.
Okay, so why don't we get into this?
Okay. First of all, we're going to look at the 5 guilds that are going to come out in the expansion. We're just going to mention them and then move on. Okay, we've got the Gruul clans. They are green and red. We've got Boros, red-white. We've got Simic, blue-green. We've got Orzhov, black-white. And finally, we have got Dimir, which is blue-black, one of my favorite combinations. Okay, but today we're going to focus on the 5 guilds that will actually be at the pre-release, and we're going to start off with Selesnya. You want to talk about the mechanics here?
Sure. The Selesnya mechanic is populate, which basically, in order for it to work, you have to have at least 1 creature token in play, and then it pretty much doubles your token when you populate.
Okay, let's take a look at this actual guild master card here. Trostani, Selesnya's Voice. What do you think of this card?
I really like the fact that it has a large toughness, or a big butt as we like to call it. I think all the guild masters are costed really well for their guild. I love its mechanic that it has populate on the actual card. And I think it's a very fair populate casting cost. You do have to have a token in play to make it really work. And I think the gaining life, especially against other guilds such as Rakdos and the Golgari, is going to be really relevant.
I totally agree. I along with you and Sir Mix-a-Lot, prefer big butts. So let's look at the pre-release card that everybody's going to get to use if they choose this guild. It's the Grove of the Guardian.
I gotta say, most people are probably thinking, "Aw, yuck, pooey," but an 8/8 vigilance token that you could eventually hit up and populate that token, especially if you have your guildmaster or any of the fine populate mechanics, is gonna be really good. Another thing about this is it's a land, so it doesn't actually screw you over if you're in this guild. You just play it, and when you hit it, you're just looking at it like, all right, this kind of sucks. But eventually, when you get an 8/8 vigilance creature out, and they have like these I hit you with a 2/2 unleash guy for 1. If you're able to stabilize, gain some life, and populate, it's not going to be that bad.
I agree. Kind of Godsire-ish in a way with populate.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
All right, let's look at the guild mage, Vitu-Ghazi.
Yeah, this guild mage, they're all 2/2 for 2. They're guild colors. It gives you a very, very overcosted 3/3 centaur creature. Now that may seem like it sucks, but late game when nothing else is going on and you're board stalling, it's pretty ridiculous. Also, you have another populate mechanic on a creature, which I think is pretty sweet. If you have a ton of mana, you can make a 3/3 centaur, and then next turn you could populate and populate again. And that's pretty much a really nice investment if you could keep this guy alive late game. Early game, he's not going to do too many great things, but late game, it's going to be a really good guild mage.
All right, that's a good point. I mean, I can see late game Selesnya just taking over just because of the populate mechanic.
Yeah, when you think about it, if they're all about big butts and having toughness and gaining life and populating, just growing their army, late game is when they really shine, in my opinion.
All right, let's look at the charm for Selesnya.
Okay, so I think the 2-2, the first part of the charm, 2-2 and trample, is going to get the job done in a lot of games. I mean, Celestia is known for, I have big dorks that punch you in the face but can never get through. Their evasion is really bad. They have high toughness, yada yada. But when you give something trample and it can now punch through that last few damage that you turn it on early game, that's pretty sick. Exile target creature with power 5 or greater is insane because it gets it out of the graveyard, and you know where that's where Golgari likes to play with their scavenge things. And a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield. Now, most people may look at that and say, hey, that really sucks. A 2/2 for 2, yeah, it's got vigilance. But I don't think you realize, some of you, that this is a 2/2 flash creature.
Right.
Since the charm is instant, you can flash it in end step, and now you have an extra attacker. You can flash it in during combat. You have an extra blocker. This charm is really versatile.
Right, I love the removal element. All right, let's look at the key rune for Selesnya.
Okay, this one is probably the worst one. I mean, a 3/3 is great and all, but the other ones have relevant abilities, and this one just basically says, I get an extra power, I get an extra toughness, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
Right. So each guild has a card that can't be countered, and now we're going to look at the Selesnya version of this card, the Smiter.
Okay, now I know I just said, hey, Celestia likes to play late game, but it also does have a pretty sick early game. It's got nothing to scoff at, as you'll see over the next few cards. Now, I don't really feel that the can't be countered is going to be really relevant for the pre-release primer. It may have other applications in other formats such as standard, but a 4/4 for 3 pretty much in your colors, that if somebody tries to make you discard him, you put him onto the battlefield, is insane.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got the land, which is just a temple garden. Nothing special here. I mean, but
yeah. There's not much to say about this, but I mean, as a general for the cycle, I think it's really nice. Speaking for someone who couldn't really afford these lands when they first came out, being that I wasn't really working, and now I have a chance to actually play with them. And I know some people are upset that it decreased their value, but I know for a lot of the newer players, they can't wait to get their hands on these lands.
And an interesting card that was an uncommon or a common from the set is Call of the Conclave, a 3/3 for 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Watchwolf is another card that came out that was a 3/3 for 2 at the time, which was just insane. Like, the power level was crazy. And now, we've been a lot more spoiled later on. But a 3/3 for 2 brings the early beats, plus, not to mention, it is a token creature, so it can be populated.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our next guild, which is Azorius. You want to talk about the detain mechanic?
Sure, let's touch on this detain mechanic. First of all, let's try to not detain lands ever, because it's not going to let you. But it does detain non-land permanents, which means you can hit enchantments, artifacts, key runes, but most likely you're going to be using this for creatures, especially on the guild mages, I feel, because you make them not able to attack, not able to block, and they can't use their activated abilities for that turn. I think detain is really sick because it lets you play a tempo game and it lets you be in charge.
Absolutely. Let's look at the guild master for this guild. Isperia Supreme Judge. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I like him, but I don't like him at the same token. I mean, he's going to get the job done being a 6/4 flyer, but the 4 toughness is very low. There's common removal that can get rid of him. There's uncommon removal that can get rid of him. There's rare removal that can get rid of him. But if you stick him, you're probably going to win even before the extra drawing a card ability comes into play. But I like it a lot if you can stick it and protect it.
I think the only thing I don't like about it is that you kind of put the ability to control it in your opponent's hands. They can just not attack. So
Yeah, but speaking on that quick, I think a lot of players at the pre-release are very casual, and I think they won't 100% know which choice is always correct. So I feel that you will benefit at least before, while the card is still new, more from this card at the pre-release
that's
than
a
you
good
will
point.
later on.
That's a good point. All right, moving on. Let's look at our promo. We're going to get to use the Archon of the Triumvirate.
Okay, I mean, this card costs 7, which in my opinion is really, really a lot. I mean, 4/5 flyer is nothing to scoff at. Let's, be honest. Anything that flies and has relevant power and toughness is great. The ability to detain against the fast decks this late is going to be terrible, but I think this is going to be excellent against the slower, more control-ish builds.
And it's got colors in the picture too, so you can't dismiss the colors. All right,
That is true.
Nukrov Guildmage.
Okay, I think the first ability is really good, but you got to keep in mind a lot of the blue-white cards already have flying,
Right.
so it's not as great on color of an ability, but he can essentially give himself flying, which is really nice. And then I think his second ability is really, really good and is going to be very relevant because on turn 5, if you can get out some evasive creatures and get a quick rush in there, not that that's the style of this guild, but if you can do that and then you drop him on, like, let's say turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4, and then you detain their best blocker, it's really going to be hard for them to do. Plus, another key thing with detain is it also makes them skip their attack phase for that detained permanent if you choose a creature.
Okay. Also, this is not a tap ability, so again, late game, making many of your creatures flying if they aren't already
Yeah,
sounds pretty good.
yeah, I like that as well.
All right, moving on. Here's our Azorius Charm.
Yeah, I mean the lifelink might be relevant. I think in limited, usually life gain is scoffed at. You try not to play it. If you're a seasoned vet, you know that it's usually not very advantageous. But this gives you kind of a choice, as all the charms do. So the life gain might be relevant. Draw a card is also very relevant, especially since it's instant speed. Helps you dig in deeper into your library, gain card advantage. And I feel that the put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library is actually pretty underrated. I think that people look at it and they're like, well, it doesn't get rid of the creature, but remember, this style of guild wants to play the tempo game. So as long as it's a creature that isn't like, oh crap, it's a bomb and I have to draw an answer, if you're putting something that's hard to cast, that's going to basically time walk them and make them draw a non-new card, a non-fresh card, it's going to go right with what the plan that you're trying to execute is.
All right. Here we've got the Key Rune, which actually we don't have the picture for yet, as the picture has not been released, but it's basically the same. It costs 3. It's an artifact. You can tap it for white or blue, and it becomes a 2/2 blue and white bird creature, artifact creature with flying until end of turn. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I like it. I also like how you basically made like a full art version of the card. I do think you're going to get hated on for putting B, Josh, because B means black. Come on.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it should be
Anyways, yeah, but anyways, it doesn't matter because a 2/2 flyer for 2 after is great. Plus, it helps speed up your mana, as all the key runes do. But this is a guild that really is mana hungry and wants all of its mana and its tempo.
But the art's good.
Oh god, the art is sick. I love it.
All right.
I would just like paint my stomach with that art. That's disgusting.
Moving on.
Okay, Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be all rejoiceful, all us aggro players, that they get to have a Day of Judgment or a Wrath of God effect again, and it's going to make 5-color control pretty relevant, and it's going to make your life miserable, praying and hoping that they don't have a Supreme Verdict as you smash into them and are so far ahead, and then they just slam this on you. I mean, anytime you are playing against these colors, at least you'll know it's coming, hopefully, and you'll play accordingly. But, you know, there's not much to say about destroy all creatures.
No, and you can't counter it. So
Yeah.
all right, the land is the Hallowed Fountain.
Yeah, it's not really relevant. I mean, we're all going to say the same thing about the Hollowed Fountain. Just to note, the Hollowed Fountain and the blue-red one are the most expensive ones currently. So, you know, keep that in mind when if you open one of those up, you don't want to trade it for the same value as the other three.
It's a good point.
Okay.
We chose the Sky Knight here for the uncommon.
Yeah, let's be honest. I think we're pretty happy with a 3/1 flyer for 3, and then giving it a detain ability, it just puts it over the top. This is probably one of the top 5 uncommons in set, in you know, maybe even top 3. I think it's just what this guild needs to really push it through, and just once again steal that tempo.
All right, moving on. Let's go to our third guild. Let's get a little deceptive and power hungry here with Izzet. You want to talk about the mechanics here?
Sure. This is called overload, this mechanic, and basically it just swaps out the word target with all, I believe. And that basically says, like, okay, I can do 4 damage to target creature, or now I can do 4 damage to all creatures target opponent controls, you know, and things like that. That's just the, you know, an example of a card. But, I mean, I think it is a very deceptive and greedy mechanic.
All right, let's look at good old Niv Mizzet Draco Genius himself here.
Yeah, I'm gonna not really go out on a limb here. I'm gonna just say it. I think this is the best of the guild masters, or whatever we're calling them. He's just a 5/5 for 6. When he's in your colors, all of them are going to be slightly difficult to cast. But this guy, even though he costs 6 instead of 4, he also gives you time to get to that 6, and he doesn't have an immediate impact when he hits the board. So, you know, you got to keep that in mind. That, okay, oh shit, they killed him, whatever. But if he survives 1 turn, you are just so far ahead. It's ridiculous.
Right.
You have a 5/5 flyer. You get to ping things and players if you want. You get to draw cards every time, you know, he deals damage. Not only combat damage. Right. So you essentially can draw 3 cards at the end of their turn. You can play a charm and draw 2 cards and ping things. You can kill something on turn 7 or turn 6 if you have a key rune out. You could kill something that has 3 toughness and draw 3 cards. It's just like, I don't know what else to say. I think I'm in love.
The promo card is also really good for Izzet the Hypersonic Dragon.
Yeah, Hypersonic Dragon, anything I really feel, especially against the Blue-White Guild, is sick with haste. I think they're going to have a hard time dealing with haste. I think they're going to say, oh, haha, I have all the tempo, I detained your guys, it's so cool, I'm awesome, I'm this cool guy. And then you're going to say, oh, I just got smacked in the face for 4 with this haste. And they're going to be like, all right, well, whatever. But this isn't only relevant against the Orzhov Guild. It's also good because it gives all of your sorceries flash, which is basically makes them instant speed. And there are some good ones in Izzet that you want to be playing at instant speed. So I think as long as you can get them out, you protect them, you use them pretty aggressively, yeah, you have advantage by bending the rules of the game.
Yeah, and plus he's wearing red, white, and blue wings, because there's an American Hypersonic Dragon, Chris.
Yeah, I think I noticed that, and I was gonna let you handle that.
All right, let's look at the Guild Mage.
Okay, I know you're not really impressed with this guy, and
Yeah.
I think that's gonna, you know, probably ruffle a few feathers because people are gonna say, but he draws cards, and I agree. I like the fact that he draws cards. I like that he loots. I think it's really, really good. I think he can loot pretty much immediately. It's not a tap ability like all the other guild mages aren't, and you can do it at instant speed like the other ones. So you leave 3 mana up. Okay, I draw, and I totally get rid of a crappy card in my hand. The second ability ability on this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, especially at the pre-release. I mean, there's going to be times where you just blow somebody out with a really good removal spell, but it is going to be a very heavy mana and color commitment to this, making this guy work.
All right, let's look at the charm for Izzet.
Well, I think this is probably, I'd say, one of the top two charms.
Yeah,
I know
top two.
I know there's a lot of varying opinions on things, but you're going to blow people out because they're not going to be expecting a counter spell. I mean, you know, they're going to be like, oh, what? I'm telling you now, that will happen at your pre-release, unless you're playing against pros all day. The deals 2 damage to a target creature is very relevant. And I feel the draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards is really, really, really good. It helps you dig. It goes with what the color wants to do. And let's not forget, it is also instant speed.
Right. All right, let's look at the key rune for Izzet.
Okay, I mean, a 2/1 vanilla dude doesn't seem that great, but I think if you can set it up where you are able to connect with it by killing their little dudes or bouncing their guys or pulling some sort of trickery like Izzet likes to do, getting in and having a 2/1 that loots is, I feel, pretty strong. And I think people are going to underestimate this key rune initially.
All right. Next, we've got the uncounterable spell Counterflux.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this has many real applications to the pre-release. I think if you open it and you're in Izzet, you'll play it, but if you open it and you're not, you're going to be a little perturbed and upset. I think the overload is really good because it stops storm decks and, you know, things that would just want to kind of go off, and it can't be countered, so it kind of fights counter wars pretty well.
Counter that can't be countered. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Steam Vents.
Steam Vents was what I was talking about earlier. Like I said, just to reiterate, don't trade these away. Usually any dual land that has blue in it is going to retain its value and be a little bit, you know, more pricey than the other ones.
And last, the card we chose is the Electromancer.
Okay, I mean, I like this guy. I feel you're going to be a little bit hampered by mana, but speeding up things a whole turn is really good. I mean, when I say hampered by mana, you're like, but things cost less. How am I hampered? Well, some things, especially in this set, are, you know, blue and red. So he doesn't help with, like, casting your charms or things of that nature, but he will help when you need him to later on.
And he has a heck of a nose, too, buddy. I'm telling you.
He can smell the deception. It's in the air.
All right. Okay, let's move on to another guild here and get a little bit wild with Rakdos.
Okay. Unleash is the mechanic, which basically says, I'm going to make my early creatures kick your butt and kick your teeth in, and if you don't have an answer, you're going to lose. And it puts a 1/1 on it and a 1/1 counter on it, and it gives them this like insane overcosted ability of being more powerful and more tough than the other guilds, but then they can't block. So it's like, okay, I'm very hyper aggressive, but now you have something with a lot of toughness, or you have a combat trick, and now my aggression is just stepping on the brakes full speed, and you're just sitting there a little bit upset. And a cool little trick that one of my friends pointed out was with the Unleash guys, you can actually scavenge your guys and throw counters on their Unleash guys. Like, let's say they play the 1/2 guy that has Death Touch, or it could be a 2/3 with the thing on it. Well, a 1/2 is really hard to get by when it has Death Touch, but if you throw some counters on it, all of a sudden it can't block. And I think that's a cool little trick you could try out at the pre-release.
That's a good point. All right, let's look at old Rakdos himself here.
Yeah, I mean, this basically brings in the pain cast mechanic, which I heard, I could be completely wrong, it was scrapped late in the game, which is why they came up with Unleash, which is why a lot of people are really upset that Rakdos kind of sucks. But this guy, if you get him, play him, you should definitely be able to make an opponent lose life. And a 6/6 trampling flyer is just so nutty. I mean, and he makes your spells cost less. So, like, let's say you have this and Rakdos Return, and you hit them, you can play a Rakdos Return for 3 mana that will deal, I don't know, 7 and I don't know, discard their whole hand. I mean, that's not realistic at your pre-release since they're both mythic, but he just makes X spells so pretty.
I agree. All right, let's look at the pre-release card, the Carnival Hellsteed, who apparently likes candied hands and sweethearts.
Yeah. I think a 5/4 is fine for 6. A little underpowered, but then you throw First Strike on him, and you throw Haste on him, and now he's looking really pretty good. And then you throw Unleash on him, and now he's actually a 6/5 Haste First Striker. And I know you're against this guy because you're like, well, they'll just chump him with a token. Well, you know what? Eventually they're going to run out of tokens if this guy is just bashing their faces in. Not to mention you will be in black and red, so you will have some sort of removal most likely. And like I said earlier, a lot of the control decks, I think they're going to have a hard time dealing with him as he blazes out of the gate. Once he hits, then they may be able to detain him and slow him down a bunch. But I think he's actually pretty decent.
Nice horse racing reference there. Blazes out of the gate. I like that. You know, I used to be a big fan of the old Nightmare, so I don't really mind the Carnival Hellsteed too bad.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, here's your Guild Mage.
Okay, I have to say that I feel this is one of the more powerful guild mages. He makes blocking a nightmare. He basically, against 1/1s makes himself just trade and, just do nasty things against bigger guys. And that's just him. And he could just sit back and be like, all right, cool. I'm going to swing this guy in. You block it. Your guy dies. My guy lives. All right, that's a fair trade. But he does what Rakdos wants to do, which is be aggressive and punch damage through. His second ability is also really good because it just gets that little extra life point here or there in there, and it's kind of hard to turn on if they've stabilized. Like, you're going to be kicking yourself and saying, like, why couldn't it just be black and red and target player loses a life? Well, that would be too good. And like I said, they wanted to go with this kind of pain cast mechanic and really make you work for it. But I think if you have a way to pretty much just get in there and then just drain them, it's going to be really, really beneficial.
All right. The Charm for Rakdos. What do you think of this, Chris?
I think it's crap, but I think at the pre-release it's actually better, and I would definitely main deck this. I mean, it has relevancy in all of its 3 things. Like, first of all, Golgari has a graveyard that they want to scavenge from. They want to return things to their hand. They want to just play unfairly and be dirty and have all their guys have flashback, essentially, and things like that. But this gets rid of that problem. Then it says destroy target artifact, and you're like, oh, but the artifacts really kind of aren't that impressive in this set. No, they are. They have these things called key runes, and they speed people ahead, and they're a creature that can come to life whenever they want to. And I think that's really relevant in destroying their mana production and slowing them down when they're trying to speed up. And each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. May not seem impressive against a lot of the guilds, but it's insane against the Silencia Guild because Celestia Guild because they have populate, so they might have just a bunch of random tokens, and you're just like, okay, kill you out of nowhere.
Right.
And with Rakdos, it just, you're just like, I can't get those last few points in, and people are going to start overcommitting to the board because they feel safe, like, okay, I've stabilized. Well, now I'm going to drop a big threat, and next turn I'm going to drop another, and you're going to be dead in 2 turns. And I have 5 creatures to your 3 that can't even block, and you're so screwed. But oh no, just kill you out of nowhere for two mana. Good game.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to surprise a lot of people and make them wake up that this charm may not be the best. It may actually be the worst, but I think it's got a little pep in its step.
Yeah, I agree. All right, speaking of key runes, let's move to the key rune.
Yeah, I know you like this key rune
I
a
do.
lot. I mean, I think I should let you talk about this one because you seem to really like it.
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, I like the first strike. I like the 3 power, and the picture's not bad either. That's about all I have to say about the key rune. I do like it a lot. It kills many of the other ones, and so it doesn't have evasion, but I still like it.
Yeah, when keys get into fights, this one comes out on top.
Absolutely, it's a big, mean key. All right, moving on. Slaughter Games. I guess maybe more standard applications than limited here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this basically says, if you have a bomb, I'm going to pray I have this card in my hand. I'm going to hit 4 mana before you get to play your bomb, and I'm going to get rid of it, and you're not going to do anything about it. And then it's like, okay, that's cool. You got rid of my bomb. Here's another bomb. So, it's not the greatest. I do love the art, and I do
The art
love
is
the
cool.
app. I do love the applications in standard, especially if Jund becomes a real deck out of the sideboard.
I think that one guy there is holding a pithing needle too. I'm not certain, but it looks like a modified pithing needle. So check that
Yeah,
out.
it's pretty cool. I wouldn't want to be with them. Just a quick note before you move ahead. With the key rune, I think it gives the black and red one. I think it gives Rakdos a little bit of extra reach because a lot of their guys can't block.
That's a good point.
And this gives them a blocker in dire straits if they really need to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it. All right, moving right along. Blood Crypt.
Okay, I like the Blood Crypt. I really feel that it's going to be one of the lands that sneaks up on you because we already know Black-Red Zombies is a real thing. There's talk that, this is in standard, just a quick aside, there's talk that Jund Zombies might be a thing, and there's definitely talk that Jund might make a resurgence. So I would try to pick these up, on the cheap and trade for them if you can, or just buy them in your store. I think they will retain their value, if not go up a little bit.
All right, a creature that represents Rakdos pretty well is the Cackler.
Yeah, he just basically comes out, he laughs in your face as he beats you down, and then you can't stabilize quick enough, hopefully. I mean, we all wish this guy had haste or something sick like that, but there's no way that they could do that since they already printed Goblin Guide. There'd be absolutely no downside to a 2/2 with haste that, oh, it can't block. Well, you know what? We don't want to block anyway. And I mean, when you have this card and it goes into, I think he's like one of the human guys. He's red and he becomes a 3/2. He's like a chain walker or something like that.
Yep.
If you start out with that curve and you have 5 power on the board on turn 2 and they're like, um, okay, I try to make a token. Okay, fine. Or all right, I have a 1/1. Okay, fine. And you're just doing what you want to do. So that's the dream in the pre-release if you do choose to go with this guild.
All right, let's move to our last guild, Golgari.
Okay, so the mechanic for this is Scavenge, which basically you take a creature, it dies, and then it has a flashback ability where it puts counters on a new creature that's in play based on its power. So, if you have a 2/2 that dies and it has a Scavenge ability, your creature in play can, get buffed another 2/2. It's kind of like drawing comparisons to Flashback, but it's not instant speed, so make sure you don't try to play it at instant speed.
That's a good point. All right, now everybody knows Jared from Subway, but there's another Jared in the house. and he is a Golgari Lich Lord. What do you think of this?
I think he is pretty solid overall. I mean, whenever you can get a creature of this caliber back from your graveyard, even at the cost of slowing down your mana production, it's really solid. I think late game, people are going to be really depressed when, they have eight mana in play and I sack a forest and a swamp and I get this guy back and then I just cast him and then they've got all sorts of problems going on because late game he's going to be really good if your graveyard is not really fussed with much. And I think the ability of sack another creature, each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power in a deck where you're playing stupid big things just gives you really sick reach. Just make sure you don't try to sack him to himself because that's kind of not allowed.
It's mean too.
Yeah.
All right, here's the Corpse Jack Menace, the promo card.
Okay, this guy's just all right. I'm a 4/4 for 4, and nobody's impressed with that anymore. But the doubling of counters is really nice. I mean, especially with Scavenge. So you're going to be playing this guy no matter what. You're going to try to get him out early. You're going to try to scavenge with him and other creatures, and he's going to just beat face and be a big stupid dude. And if you have Jared, or you're just going to have a giant thing to sack to him and just drain them out like that.
Yeah, I like it. All right, the Guild Mage is the Khorazda Guild Mage. Scary picture.
Yeah, I'm glad you took this one because I don't think I could have said that. However, I do think that this is probably the best Guild Mage. I mean, the 1/1 Intimidate at instant speed is really good. I mean, Intimidate is usually excellent. In this set, it's less good because people are going to be greedy. They're going to be playing 3, 4, 5 color decks.
Right.
The minimum, they're going to be playing 2 color decks. And it's going to be terrible when you're playing it with, like, in the Golgari mirror that you will probably bump into at some point. But the fact is, it still buffs your guy at instant speed. And the Intimidate is icing on the cake. Now, remember, Intimidate can be blocked by the key runes. So since they're artifacts, I could be wrong. If it's a blue-red creature, we're going to have to check that. But if it's an artifact creature, it can block it. If it's not an artifact creature...
They're artifact creatures.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So they can block it, so be careful with that. But his second ability is really where it's at. Sacrifice a non-token creature. Put X 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature's toughness. So if you're playing this and you happen to be splashing some populate cards with Celestia, it's going to be really good. I think getting a lot of Sapperlings and then populating is going to be good. If you have any high toughness creature cards, you can exchange them out. Like you could block, and if they're about to die, you can instant speed them out. And it's just nasty tricks that you could do with this. And if you have any, way to buff your creatures, it's going to be really good.
Okay, let's take a look at the charm. The Golgari Charm.
Okay, I think all creatures getting -1/-1 until end of turn is not going to be very relevant unless you're head on board or you're playing against Populate and they have a bunch of 1/1 tokens. Right. So that's going to be good. You're probably going to end up on the wrong side of this if you try to be overly aggressive with it. So I would be careful when you want to go all in and use the first part of it. Destroy target enchantment. There are enchantments in this set that you want to get rid of, especially the ones that are like give you a bonus. Like there's one, a 2/1, and then it gives flying for a blue. You're going to want to knock those off because they're going to be really annoying. And, there's some other good enchantments that you're going to want to get rid of. But I think the main thing in this is just the regeneration of each of your creatures. It's really good on defense, and it's excellent on offense as well.
Right. We got the Sluisway Scorpion, and the Key Rune also has Death Touch, and regenerating Death Touch is always handy. So
this is true.
Okay, speaking of the Key Rune here it is.
Yeah, they are artifact creatures, so that thing about Intimidate is relevant. A 2/2 is really not that great, but a 2/2 Death Touch is really, it's pretty sweet. I mean, especially if you can regenerate it or pump it. It can block if you need it to block. They're probably going to try to kill this if you're too aggressive with it, because don't just forget that it turns into a 2/2 creature that has Death Touch. Because if you do that, you're actually losing your mana source, and you don't want to just be reckless with this. But I think it's good on defense, and it plays offense okay as well.
Okay. Here's the uncounterable spell, Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, this card is going to be all over the place. So I would actually try to, I think it's around 20 now, 15, 20. I would try to hold on to these if I opened a few of them. I would definitely try to trade for these. They're definitely going to be a mainstay in Standard. They're going to be a mainstay in Modern, and they might actually be picked up for Legacy as well. So this is a card that just goes all across formats. I would even say in Commander, this is a decent removal spell. Can't be countered, which makes it nuts. This is one spell that you wouldn't want to be countered, and it takes out so many things. Like, it even kills certain planeswalkers, like Liliana of the Veil. It kills creatures. The only thing you can't do is vindicate a land with it. So, and you got to make sure you're not playing this recklessly. It's mana cost 3 or less, not power, not toughness. So keep that in mind, and remember it's instant speed as well.
Okay. Here is Overgrown Tomb.
Yeah, this one's going to be a good one, just like the Blood Crypt. I mean, I really feel strong that out of the gates, when the new Standard format hits, that people are going to play Jund. I mean, it's a known quantity in the past. It's not as good anymore, but I think people have an inclination to want to play things that they're familiar with. So you'll see like mono red out of the gate for the new Standard. You'll see Jund. You'll see 5-color control in some sort of form, or blue-white control. And I think these will hold value and really fit in a lot of decks, especially if green-black zombies becomes relevant.
All right. Finally, the Dreg Mangler is the uncommon we've chosen.
Yeah, there were a few, but this was the one that had the most impact, especially since it had the keyword Scavenge on it. A 3/3 for 3 that hastes is very relevant, and when they die, it comes back. And the Scavenge is actually not that badly costed. It costs 5, and you may think that that's overcosted, but this one actually puts 3 counters on things, and that's a pretty big game against a lot of decks.
Okay. Let's just quickly review what we've got here. We started with Selesnya, and here is the gate.
Okay. Now, quickly, I'm going to talk about the gates. The gates allow you to really be greedy at your pre-release. Don't sit there and say, oh, God, I don't want to get mana screwed. I have all these... Really, I don't want to be color screwed. I have all these awesome cards. If it shares a color, you most likely can play it. So I'm not saying play Rakdos and have red-black cards and then be like, I also want to play green-white cards. No, I'm not saying that. But if you have like a tricolor, like you have in this case a green-white, you can probably play a blue card or a few blue cards safely. You could probably play a few black cards on the Golgari side safely. You can probably, if you even want to go crazy, play a few red cards, but it's not going to be aligned as well. But the gates are common, and that means you're going to get a few of them in your pool, and you're going to be able to abuse them. And remember, they come into play tap, so they're a little bit slower, but being able to fix your mana right out of the gate, is worth it.
Okay, overall impressions of Selesnya.
I've heard mixed things, but overall I think people think it's going to be probably one of the top tier decks to play at the pre-release. Has a lot of good things going for it. Populate is very strong, especially when you have a combat trick and a token out and you can populate, you make an extra token. It's really nice. There's a few populate things. There's creatures with populate, so populate's being pushed. I also think it plays the aggressive role pretty well, and I also think it plays the defensive roll really well. What we talked about as a downside is that it really can't punch through that last few points of damage that it needs to usually. So you're going to have some strategy to be either hyper aggressive or just swarm them late game with all your tokens.
Okay. Here is Azorius, and of course the appropriate guild gate there. What are your impressions on Azorius?
I really think that this is going to be for the people who, excuse me, are very skilled with Magic. I think it's going to be a guild that's very skill intensive. If you play Delver in Standard or Blue-White Control, or you have a very strong foundation of how the game works, I think you'll probably feel comfortable in this style of deck. It's tempo based. It allows you to make the decisions. It allows you to detain creatures and pick and choose your path to victory. If you feel like you're not great with decision trees and making choices that that basically affect the outcome of the game, I think you're going to be a little bit overwhelmed with how hard it is to play this guild. But if you like making people pissed off, you should probably play this.
All right. I don't think I'm good enough to play Azorius. I like the concept, but I don't think I'm going to make it.
Yeah, I don't think I would play it myself either, because I think I would make too many wrong decisions and people would just be like, all right, I just beat you with guys.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Izzet?
Okay, so a lot of people are asking, is it the best guild?
A fine joke.
I think initially they were thinking so, but after seeing more of the spoiler, I think it's probably not the best guild after all. I do think you have to be a skilled player to play this one as well. It probably really pairs well with the Orzhos guild, and I think it is really good if you like to be somewhat deceptive. You know, kill a thing here, draw a few cards here, make an evasive creature here or there, and try to win, and maybe just power out a large dragon out of nowhere, and just oh crap, well I'm out of gas, and you're just sitting there, ready to pounce. So I think if you're good with this and good with control style, it's great. I also think the overload mechanic really leads to blowouts from your perspective. Like if you overload Cyclone Rift, which bounces their whole team essentially, or if you overload Mizzium Mortars, which basically wipes their board, those are pretty big games. I mean, one thing that I've heard about the Izzet is that the removal and tricks really don't get good until uncommon and rare, so you're going to be piecemealing a lot of your commons together to try to make a playable deck.
Okay. And also I think with Rakdos this would really work well with the overload mechanic and then just a full-on assault. Yeah. Sounds good to me. Also, if Snoop Dogg were playing at my pre-release, I guarantee you he would be playing Izzet. All right. Speaking of Rakdos, here we are.
There it is. You like aggression. You like really just stomping on your opponent's hopes and dreams of winning the pre-release, then you play this guild. I don't think it's good enough to get there on its own as a guild unless you have an insane pool. Like if you have a crazy pool that just has a bunch of the cacklers and the 3/2 guys for 2, then you might just win. But I think you probably would pair this with either Izzet or maybe even Golgari to get some scavenge things later on. I think you're going to be weak to stabilization. If people stabilize against you and you don't have bombs and you can't come over the top, you can't get those last few points of damage, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to have not the greatest time.
Okay, and finally, Golgari.
Yeah, this is the guild. I know you haven't spoken yet on which guild you would choose, but I'm kind of stuck between this one and Selesnya. I think they're both really good. I like the Golgari guild. I mean, my style is just trying to kill things and beat down. And I think that's what this does well. It has a little bit of extra reach when you're taking things from your graveyard and either returning them or buffing things and just trying to bash through. I think there's, in my opinion, not much downside to this guild. It's a little weak to flying if you don't have any of the reach guys, which there aren't too many in this set. And it doesn't have the greatest on-color removal outside of, Abrupt Decay, and I think there's one that gives +3 to one creature and -3 to another, which is an uncommon. So if you can't get good removal, I would, kind of hope that you would get enough creatures that can get you home.
So you said Golgari or Selesnya for you?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, my choice is very similar. I like both of those a whole lot. I might try to splash a little Rakdos in there. Izzet is so tempting, but I'm not smart enough to play that one either, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you're no Draco genius, I've been told.
I'm no Draco genius, friend.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, this is our pre-release primer. We do hope you enjoyed it. Come visit us at the mtgnoob.com. Chris, any last thoughts?
Yeah, good luck. It's going to be a really fun set. I'm really excited for it, and just play to the best of your ability and the best of your pool and have a good time.